In most cases, we avoid difficult situations whenever we have the opportunity to do so. Nevertheless, I always make it a point to put myself in those situations. Every single day. In this video, I'll go over the 3 most critical considerations that played a role in my decision to go with this approach. And who knows, maybe by the time you're done reading this, you'll feel motivated to give yourself a challenge right now. Let's begin then. Within this rather small space is where the majority of the action is taking place. You could say that we are the most at ease at this particular location. We all have our own, and it's a place where we like spending time together. Typically, it will look something like this. Whether we are at school or working, we will do everything it takes to ensure that our basic needs are met. Maybe more than that altogether. Using our phones or interacting with other forms of technology can provide us with small doses of dopamine at various points throughout the day. The same circle of friends gets together on the weekends almost every time. Being closed off to novel concepts and reliant solely on the tried and true ones we've held for many years is a bad habit to get into. This is a metaphor for making the choice that requires the least amount of work on your part. We start to experience a sense of being stuck in our daily lives when there are no major transitions or challenges to overcome. It is not difficult to understand why the majority of people make the decision to live their entire lives in one location. The fact that we are not exerting any kind of pressure on ourselves makes it simple for us to unwind and rest here, hence, the term. At first glance, it does not appear that there is anything wrong with that. If there is a way out of a challenging circumstance, there is no point in forcing ourselves to go through with it. Nevertheless, if we never leave the confines of our comfort zones, we run the risk of unintentionally restricting our potential. A wrongful act or deed. You see, even while our safe space provides us with a lot of comfort, there is one major drawback associated with it. Those who choose to reside here for an extended period of time not only miss out on opportunities to advance, but they also frequently regress. When you engage in the same activities in the same manner on a consistent basis, you are operating within your comfort zone. Starts to become less noticeable. What used to come naturally to you now gives you anxiety and distress. Let me give you an example. Someone who is socially anxious and who dreads participating in social activities would not normally enjoy those activities. Excitement about prospective new acquaintances. They are forced to step outside of their comfort zone in order to experience anything. Therefore, they prefer to spend their time by themselves, and when they do choose to socialize, it is only with others who share their interests. Those who are already familiar to them. And that's totally fine. But let's say for the sake of argument that this person begins to spend less time with their existing friends, and even more time alone. Their current safe space will, over time, become increasingly constrained. They fail to confront their worry, which results in a significant increase in their level of dread. Even entertaining the idea of making contact with their existing group of pals could put them in an awkward position. You can therefore understand how giving in to the ease of the present might ironically lead to sorrow in the future. When muscles aren't put to use on a regular basis, they atrophy and get smaller. There is no point served by maintaining it in its current magnitude. When we don't push ourselves to our boundaries, the same thing happens. As time goes on, our ability to solve the challenges that life presents to us decreases. And that brings me to the first justification for why I make it a point to accomplish something difficult each day. My goals for the future do not include either comfort or familiarity with the environment. Become intolerable at a later point in time. On the other hand, when we challenge ourselves and succeed at something that is somewhat more challenging or difficult. For us, this means stepping outside of our comfort zone. After that, we move into the growth zone. This is the point at which we have the most difficulty, and although we may feel like inept fools, this is exactly the point at which we will succeed. Where all actual improvement is made. And I have no doubt that you have made this observation yourself. Lifting the same amount of weight over and over again at the gym won't help you make any progress toward your fitness goals. If you're trying to learn a new language, the only way to make progress is to go beyond simply practicing what you already know. You have to push yourself outside of your comfort zone and take on more challenging tasks if you want to see growth and improvement. This could entail lifting heavier weights during your workouts or learning something new and making an effort to apply it in your life. To recall that information without any other assistance. Indeed, it will be a bothersome experience. You will, in fact, have some difficulty. And yes, you will most likely get the sensation of being an idiot. However, in order to do anything worthwhile, you are going to need to go through this. This is because the things that having the greatest potential reward often involves enduring more difficulty in the present. There is no progress to be made without facing obstacles. Keep it in mind. Of course, there isn't a single comfort zone that encompasses all aspects of life. There are a lot of zones. In some of them, you might be pushing yourself to improve, while in others, you might be staying the same or even getting worse. In some, for instance, you can be falling further and further behind in terms of your social talents, not making any headway with the task in hand. Nonetheless, going to the gym and pushing yourself to your absolute limit. It is up to each of us to determine which area requires more attention than the others. It is also quite acceptable to cease making progress in specific areas if you feel content with where you are at the moment. You are not required to exert 100% of your effort into anything. However, if you are not content with where you are right now, there are a couple paths you can take to move from ease to development. You probably already have in mind a particular domain in which you feel somewhat stalled and would like to make progress. You can approach it in one of three different ways. The first method is to perform this action in a more consistent manner. The second method is to perform the action with a greater level of enthusiasm. The third and final strategy consists of continuing to engage in the activity for an extended period of time. Each of the three of them will make whatever it is that you want to get better at more challenging. They should be very easy to understand, but just in case I'll provide a condensed explanation of them using the activity of running as an illustration, solely for the purpose of providing an example. To begin, carrying it out in a more consistent manner simply indicates that you make it a goal to increase the number of days you run per week to 4 from the current 3. It is going to be a greater challenge for you because you are going to be doing it more frequently. But in addition to that, this helps firmly establish the behavior and makes it more likely that you will engage in it, as well as in the time to come. Second, increasing the amount of time you spend practicing it suggests that you already have it down. A more potent iteration of the standard action that you take. This can involve attempting something completely new, such as running up a hill or completing sprints, for example. To put it simply, rather than operating at 60% of your capacity, you increase it to 90%. This not only provides variety but also helps to make the exercise more fun because you're always changing things up. Not always and repeatedly performing the same thing every time. Thirdly, doing it for longer periods of time just means spending more money. Invest more time and effort into it, whenever that may be. If you typically run for 20 minutes, you should now challenge yourself to run for 30 minutes instead of the usual 20. Simply said, you have to exert a little bit more effort and stick it out for a little bit longer than you normally would. It's as easy as that. In addition, all of this information is applicable to pretty much every endeavor. Do you want to learn a new language? Maintain this practice on a daily basis, and if at all possible, increase the number of times per day that you carry it out by 15 minutes, and to retain more information, make use of active recall in conjunction with spaced repetition. Trying to improve your ability to interact with other people? Try putting yourself in situations where social problems could potentially emerge on a regular basis. State a new one every time you find yourself in one, and make sure you're the one who asks everyone out. Leaving behind familiarity and making strides toward one's goals can be accomplished in a number of ways, any one of which among these three is an excellent choice. Depending on what you're working on, some of them will be more helpful than others. For instance, if you are interested in playing an instrument but have never tried before, you could be surprised to find out how difficult it is. It is preferable to play for a total of 10 minutes each and every day as opposed to 60 frantic minutes once every week. In addition, you shouldn't necessarily use all three strategies at the same time because doing so can result in an excessive amount of stress too quickly. On the other hand, you ought to concentrate your efforts on a single tactic, and only after you are prepared should you branch out from that point. But there will be more on that later. Now, as I mentioned before, the majority of the benefits that life has to offer come as a result of temporary suffering. Having said that, simply because something is challenging does not in and of itself imply that it is of high quality. Although I can't think of any positive outcomes that could come from breaking your leg, it certainly wouldn't be fun. Could have been the case in the long run. The geographic location in which you want to experience discomfort must offer some kind of advantage over the long term. Learning something, for example, will make you feel stupid at the time, but in the long run, you will be glad you did it. When you take in new ideas and concepts, you will gradually become more intelligent. Keeping a nutritious diet and avoiding sweets can be difficult at times, but doing so is what will enable you to get into and keep up a healthy level of physical condition. It may be difficult to refrain from spending money on a new pair of shoes in order to save money, but if the money is invested, it will be beneficial. If you do it correctly and give it enough time, it will lead to your financial success. Therefore, situations like these should be where you put in the most effort to challenge yourself. Those that cause discomfort in the near term but pay off in the long run. And that brings me to the second justification for why I make it a point to accomplish something difficult each and every day. Even though it might hurt at the time, I know that the consequences of my actions will eventually be worth it. Out into the distant future. And it is only by going into the zone of development and pushing myself that I will be able to reap the amazing long-term benefits. Term advantages. The question now is, given that leaving one's comfort zone is obviously beneficial, why don't more of us do it? The explanation for this is that there is in fact a third zone. If someone were to push themselves too far outside of their comfort zone, they simply may not be able to handle the change. After passing through the growing zone, you will find yourself in the danger zone. Because of this, we initially experienced an uneasy feeling. There is such a thing as going too far when one is straining oneself. After all, you run the risk of injuring yourself if you engage in excessive physical activity. If you work too many hours in a week, you run the risk of becoming burned out. And discomfort is a very crucial warning indicator that prevents you from getting injured in the traditional sense. If you were injured, it would surely slow you down even further. It is for this reason that the majority of people choose to remain in the confines of their comfort zones. They want to stay as far away from the danger zone as possible. But sadly, a lot of people, when they're trying to make a significant shift in their lives, don't actually do anything to prepare for it. Proceed unapologetically into the area of potential harm. This describes one of my other close friends. A number of years ago, he decided that he wanted to improve his level of physical fitness. Newly energized, he signed up for a membership at the fitness center and committed to working out with weights 5 times per week. Few times every week. In addition to this, he vowed to start a strict diet in which he would reduce the number of calories he consumed each day. And completely get rid of the sugar. But within a month, he was right back to his old routine of slouching on the sofa, watching Netflix, and eating junk food. Eating cookie after cookie till he is full. He, like the majority of people, took on too much, too quickly. And an occurrence like this is very typical when one is working toward escaping their comfort zone. However, failing to stick to a plan isn't even the most difficult element of the process. The most significant challenge that people face in today's world is that they are unable to keep up with their obligations. High standards, but they also encourage the belief that achieving those standards is completely and utterly impossible for them. Morph and develop as you go. As a result of it, they won't even bother making an effort to better themselves in the years to come. From their point of view, these are unsuccessful people who have no business trying again. So, what is the solution to this problem? How can we make it easier to venture outside of our comfort zone so that we can function in the zone designated for our growth? However, while doing so, you should stay out of the danger zone. To achieve meaningful transformation, we must, without a doubt, step outside of our comfort zones. On the other hand, nowhere does it state that everything must be completed all at once. It is much more likely to be successful to approach it gradually, in phases that are both manageable and not too onerous. After all, for someone who has led a sedentary lifestyle, their first step toward a healthier lifestyle is to start exercising. It would be counterproductive to begin a weightlifting regimen that consists of lifting big loads for 2 hours, 5 times per week. If they simply start with something that they are actually interested in, their chances of being successful are greatly improved. Capable of achieving their goals. Comparable to engaging in a brief bout of physical activity for 45 minutes, 3 times a week. And only when they are able to keep that up should they proceed forward. Keep in mind that if you are unable to commit to even a small change, how can you ever expect to commit to a larger one? To a more substantial one? The following is merely food for thought. Building a positive feedback loop is another advantage that comes from carrying out the process in a methodical manner. Because you have already accomplished your goals, you demonstrate to yourself that you are capable of achieving them. That there is room for genuine growth and development in you. And this proof of improvement, regardless of how slight it may be, makes you feel extremely delighted and boosts your confidence. in your capacity to do so. This, in turn, encourages persistence, which is needed to push past other obstacles further down the journey. The more successful you are, the more successful you become, and the more comfortable you become pushing the boundaries of your comfort zone. Success has a snowball effect. Also, once you get a positive feedback loop going in one location, it has a tendency to gradually grow to other locations, to places other from here. And this brings me to the third justification for why I make it a point to accomplish something difficult each and every day. When I am able to accomplish anything that is outside of my comfort zone, even if it is only by a little, I feel a sense of accomplishment. This positive feedback cycle is started as a result of it. And much like a line of falling dominoes, one successful endeavor leads to another. Having said that, you shouldn't constantly force yourself to go outside the boundaries of your comfort zone. Don't confuse the fact that I say I do something tough every day with the fact that I'm trying to improve myself at each and every one of the available locations on a daily basis. It's possible that I'll challenge myself in one or two areas, but no matter what, I always end up falling back on the different applications of the concept of zone of competence. This not only helps me to stay in the zone I'm in, but it also allows me to get the required rest and recovery. If I didn't take time to unwind, I'd probably end up burning out. Yes, you should strive to become more mature with time. On the other hand, you should be sure to give your comfort zone enough time to adjust to the heightened expectations. The graph that you see here is a simplified version of how I envision the final product to look. You begin by pushing yourself beyond of your comfort zone by engaging in an activity that is difficult. However, you cannot continue to grow indefinitely. Instead, when things start to look like they are going to be too much for you, you scale back the difficulty and retreat slightly, to a greater extent than what your previous level of comfort allowed. This gives you the opportunity to become accustomed to the new layer, and it gives your comfort zone the chance to catch up to you. Your newly imposed requirements, which prevent you from being exhausted. After you have adjusted to the new requirements and determined that you are once again prepared to move forward, only then will you be allowed to do so. You challenge yourself to go beyond your new level of comfort. In the same way as in the past, if you have the impression that it is too difficult, you move backwards slightly over the previous position. In essence, you are always challenging yourself, but you are also giving yourself breaks when you need them. It becomes unmanageably intricate. You are free to continue in this manner until you have attained the status you have set for yourself. One more way of looking at it is to consider one's comfort zone to be a place of temporary sanctuary, but not a permanent dwelling. As you can see in the video, the purpose of the activity is not to tire oneself out to the point of collapse. Instead, I'm trying to persuade you to focus your energy on something that matters in the hopes of enhancing our relationship. Oneself at things that are important to you. Unfortuitously, a significant number of people give up after experiencing only a little bit of difficulty or setback. And they are never exposed to the reality of what they are capable of. If you never challenge yourself to your breaking point, how can you ever know where your threshold is? Only those who consistently push themselves beyond their comfort zones and are willing to endure challenges will be successful. Make it possible for them to develop into their complete selves. Therefore, I urge you to engage in an activity that you consider to be a little bit more difficult today. Read a few more pages, add a few more reps to your workout at the gym, and familiarize yourself with some new terminology. I promise that if you challenge yourself to achieve something difficult today, you will see results. That you will improve more today than you did yesterday. Make sure you click the like button if you like the video and would like to see more content similar to this. The fact that you care enough to support me makes a huge difference, not just to me but also to the growth of the channel. Anyway, I appreciate you sticking around to the very end of the video. There will be further videos uploaded, and I hope to see you